Hello students. In the last class we were discussing feminist theories. So just we'll be doing a brief revision and then moving on to the further topic. So in feminist theories, basically we have discussed a few theories. Among them was liberal feminism, in which we discussed that as per liberal feminism, if the disparity that exists in the society between men and women, if we have to find remedies or solutions to it, then the basic thing that needs to be required, which is required to be done, is that we have to give equal rights to women as per legal rights are concerned, social status is concerned, political and economic representation in different institutions is considered. So in all these fields, if equal participation of women is done, then we'll be able to resolve the problem of disparity or discrimination between men and women. Whereas radical feminism says that even if we give that equal participation to women, for example, we give legal rights or maybe social, political, and economic representations, but then also this discrimination won't end, because the major cause of this discrimination is the patriarchal society that exists in our country and in other countries as well. And the reason of this patriarchy is that women's body is considered as an object that needs to be controlled by men, and that results into violence, objectifications, and the various discrimination that women faces. So basically, if we have to change that, then this whole system of patriarchy needs to be eradicated from society, and then only that disparity can be resolved, or we can come out of that. And the third perspective that we have discussed was Marxist or socialist feminist. So as per Marxist, the major cause of this gender inequality is capitalism, जिसे हम पूंजीवाद भी कहते हैं. तो what he argues is that this capitalism is the major cause of the discrimination that we find, because this capitalist people or individual men, they basically exploit women unpaid reproductive labor within the family also, and if they go out, they are given low wages, or they are just kept as a reserve army of labor which can be used whenever they want. So Marxist feminists claim patriarchy is produced by capitalism. So capitalism is the major cause that has introduced patriarchy, and if we end capitalism, then only this discrimination can end, or we can put end to the discrimination that prevails between men and women. But the socialist feminists feel, or they argue that patriarchy and capitalism are two separate things. And what solution they have given to resolve this discrimination is that they call for a transformation of relationship within the family. As we have discussed, हमने discussion किया था कि जो stereotypical roles हैं हमारी society में men के लिए या women के लिए, तो उसे हमें end करना पड़ेगा, और जो पूरी भूमिकाएं हैं एक औरत की या आदमी की जो एक्सपेक्ट करती है सोसाइटी, उसका हमें फिर से रीडिस्ट्रीब्यूशन करना होगा, उसे चेंज करना होगा, बदलना होगा, चाहे वो एजुकेशन हो, हेल्थ केयर हो, इकोनॉमिक अपॉर्चुनिटीज हो या पॉलिटिकल पावर हो. तब जाकर शायद हम ये जो डिस्क्रिमिनेशन है इसको रिजॉल्व कर पाएंगे. तो ये मार्क्सिस्ट और सोशलिस्ट पर्सपेक्टिव था. इसके बाद हमें देखना है साइको एनालिटिकल फेमिनिज्म अप्लाइज फ्यूडियन थियोरी. आप लोगों को हम फ्यूड थियोरी काफ़ी डिटेल में पढ़ा चुके हैं. लास्ट जो हमारा सेमेस्टर था उसमें हमने ह्यूमन डेवलपमेंट थियोरीज काफ़ी डिटेल में पढ़ी हैं. वी हैव अ वीडियो आल्सो ऑन साइको एनालिटिकल पर्सपेक्टिव. उसको आप लोग एक बार फिर से देखिएगा और रिवाइज करेगा, तो दिस विल बिकम मोर क्लियरर. सो एज वी हैव डिस्कस दैट फ्रीड यूज्ड टू observe his patients, and basically he found that women patients who were coming for counseling, he gave the major reason why people suffer, or in adult life they go through various behavior problems. The major cause for all that was the childhood experiences feelings, emotions uh, that were subdued or that were suppressed at the time of childhood, and that all that remains in the unconscious mind, uh, that is the root cause of all the problems that they face, psychological problems. So basically, with the women patients, he found that the experiences of women in their childhood, which was suppressed or they did not share, and it resulted into behavior issues in adult life, were generally related to sexuality and women body, because the socialization that we have in a society, in that women were not given that much of freedom to discuss those issues, and that resulted in suppressing their feelings regarding that, and which resulted into all sorts of behavioral issues and problems. So that was his basic observation. So from that perspective, what we want to say is that to remove this discrimination between men and women right from the beginning, or childhood experiences have to be more androgynous uh, of nature, then only the child would be developing into an adult who would not discriminate between men and women. So the solution is androgynous society. We have discussed two types of roles are there. For example, gender roles which are stereotypical are conservative, in which we think these work has to be done by women or these work belongs to men. And in an androgynous society, we don't have that stereotypical perception of roles. In fact, we have the freedom of doing roles as per the ability of the person, rather than seeing the person is men or women. So that is what solution that psychoanalytical perspective gives for this discrimination. Women of color criticize feminist theories for ignoring coexisting forms of oppression. Another perspective that says that this sort of feminism that we have discussed in these perspectives are more close, or maybe a thought process of the Western societies. But when we talk about the third world women, their issues is a little different, because it is mixed with issues of inequality based on race, class, and sexuality, and poverty as well. They show how privilege and disadvantage are built into a matrix of domination and intersect to produce unique forms of oppression. So it's not just men and women. The underprivileged societies, or the developing nations, face that, in which this oppression gets mixed with the oppression that is based on race, class, and sexuality. So post-colonial feminism elaborates on intersectionality by emphasizing Western colonization. Here, sexism results from modernization. The sort of consumerism that we find in present society, that markets everything. हमने एग्जाम्पल्स भी डिस्कस किए थे कि हम जब ग्लोबलाइजेशन मॉडर्नाइजेशन की बात करते हैं और कंज्यूमरिज्म की बात करते हैं, कैपिटलिज्म की बात करते हैं, तो हम ये पाते हैं कि विमेन का जो रिप्रेजेंटेशन है फायदे के लिए, वो एक ऑब्जेक्ट की तरह कमोडिटी के लिए हो गया है. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, हम बार बार ये एग्जाम्पल कोट करते हैं जो बहुत प्रेवलेंट है और हम सब फेमिलियर हैं उससे, कि जो ब्यूटी की डेफिनेशन है, फॉर एग्जांपल फेयर कलर होना चाहिए. हमारी जितनी भी ब्रांड की क्रीम्स आती हैं, हम डेली एडवर्टीजमेंट टीवी में देखते हैं, मास मीडिया में देखते हैं कि the definition of beauty is related to a fair color, which is culturally and as per different societies so wrong, but that has been imposed on us. So that is what modernization or consumerism does to it. So that are also hidden causes that results into different sorts of discrimination at different levels. Economic restructuring, it includes women's exploitation as worker and sexual beings. They focus on the role of women as mothers within communities who can use this position to advocate for education of girls, educate healthcare, environmental protection. So they stress on that women have to come ahead, and they have to educate their daughters and empower them, so that a better health care and reproductive health could be given to women, and a form of environmental protection can be provided to come out of this disparities. Postmodern feminists, Postmodern feminists avoid overarching causes or solutions of gender inequality and focus on plurality and difference. They challenge inevitable and fixed characteristics of gender, including heteronormativity, assumption that heterosexuality is natural, and the undifferentiated category of women. They argue performativity, the repetition of gender identity, and dismay perpetuates gender inequality. They advocate queering, a blending of gendered characteristics, and questioning normal forms of gender and sexuality as remedies for gender inequality. To understand this perspective, in the further class, we'll be discussing you how gender identity is formed. So after discussing gender identity formation, we'll be coming to this theory. You would be better able to understand this perspective after understanding that how we identify ourselves as male or female and how is this gender identity being formed. So once we understand that then we'll be able to relate to what is heterosexuality and how this perspectives imposes that if we follow that, then this discrimination or this perception can be resolved. So other than this, we'll just discuss in short because in one of the classes we have already discussed in detail, but those students who are not present will just do a brief revision and then just move on to the different other aspects that we need to discuss. Changing status of women in India. We have discussed that the position of women, the status of women, when we compare to ancient India has changed a lot. We have walked a lot of miles ahead in case when we talk about development in education or health or other different areas or representation of women in different areas, but still there are many areas or we would say still in comparison to the world there's still many sectors where improvement is required, and we have to put a lot of effort to put end to we can't say end but to reduce this discrimination or disparity that exists. So the status of women, social, economic, political in general in India today is much higher than in ancient and medieval periods. So if we compare from ancient and medieval periods, yeah, we can say that we have moved ahead in a number of things. Women today enjoy many more rights, social and legal, and have greater freedom and voice and participate more freely in public affairs. But it is also true that they are still discriminated, harassed, humiliated, dominated, and even exploited. So just a brief journey of ancient India and how we have moved ahead in different areas. In ancient India, when we talk about ancient India or the Vedic or epic periods, there we find that women by and large were treated equal to men. And how we are saying that, for example, when we say we see their rituals, for example, most of the rituals or the social events were related to religion, were religious. So there, the females were taking part with the males, and they were equally given opportunity to do that. For example, हमने कुछ एग्जाम्पल्स डिस्कस किए थे कि जैसे यज्ञ करते हैं या पूजा के कुछ रिचुअल्स होते हैं, उसमें जो फीमेल है वो मेन के साथ बैठती है और हस्बैंड वाइफ साथ में उन ड्यूटीज को पूरा करते हैं. तो वो पर्दा सिस्टम या वो डिस्क्रिमिनेशन हम वैदिक काल में नहीं पाते, बल्कि देखते हैं कि चाहे एजुकेशन की फील्ड हो या जो रिलीजियस रिचुअल्स हैं, सोशल पार्टिसिपेशन है, वो वुमेन का काफी कुछ था. They were considered not only as pivots of domestic life but also the entire social organization. तो उनका representation हमें society में social organization में दिखता है. Of course, there are scholars who refer to several passages from religious scriptures to point out that they enjoyed low status. Still, there are other examples that can be quoted जहाँ पे हम पाते हैं कि disparity थी. Now coming to in the Puranic or Brahmanical or medieval period, the status of women was lowered by imposition of several restrictions. Pre-puberty marriages came to the practice, widow remarriage was prohibited. Husband was given the status of God for a woman.